Hello, this is Dr. Ryan Rominger again with Transpersonal Approaches to Creative Expression. Welcome to week 3. This week we are focusing on combining different types of creative expression into multimodal work. Multimodal work tends to come from the phenomenological lineage of expressive arts. And both McNiff and Natalie Rogers talk about multimodal work and emphasize the values of using and combining a multitude of media to help express the different aspects of one's experience and let it come forward through the body, through the visual, through the poetic or the narrative. And this week I would like to encourage you to do the same. To engage in multimodal work, please pick 3 different media to work with and contemplate whatever topic it is that you might be working with this week. And I give 3 different potential topics online. And when contemplating that topic, choose 3 media and engage in your expressive artwork with those 3 different media. You're welcome to use more than 3. By any means, you can definitely use more than 3 and make multiple projects throughout the week and let us know how it goes. Also, the value this week is discernment and mindfulness, being mindful of the work and how it moves you, as well as learning discernment and the value of the different media and how combining different media can provide a different experience for you or for those with whom you work. The readings for this week are from Trust the Process, page 60 through 74, and that includes the section on the blank page and reframing. And also that's the quote that I'm going to give today. And also the Creative Connection, chapters 4 and 5, in which Natalie Rogers discusses using and combining different media into mixed media experiences. And I strongly recommend you look through there and see what the different types that she recommends might be. All right, I'm going to launch into a quote here. I'd like to give a quote every week, but then I want to also offer up a number of stories of my own. In fact, I've been doing some multimodal work today and would like to share that with you. So the quote is from Trust the Process, An Artist's Guide to Letting Go by Sean McNiff, and it is on page 67. McNiff says, Any act can become the subject of aesthetic contemplation. In this sense, there is no blank page in the world. Every moment and gesture carries the potential for creation. Every moment and gesture carries the potential for creation. Blankness and emptiness are attitudes. What matters in aesthetic consciousness is the quality of attention that we bring to the witnessing of actions performed by others and ourselves. What matters in aesthetic consciousness is the quality of attention that we bring to the witnessing of actions. So, keeping that in mind, one of the stories I would like to tell you about is a project that I've been working on for a while now. About over 6 months ago, I was moved, and this is actually part of this is in the interview that Ishana Artra did with me and is posted online. It's also on YouTube. But about 6 months ago, I was moved by an image that just came very strongly to me, and I'm still working with the image and don't fully comprehend all the aspects of the image, and that's fine. I'm enjoying the discovery mode that I'm in. And that image was of a red door out in the middle of a field. And I live on a farm now in Montana. So there was a very specific spot in a field that I had in mind, and I saw this red door standing out in the middle of this field. And for the longest time, I tried to push that image off and put it off, and I successfully did for a while, and then it started to build up again. The pressure of the image, there was a driving force that I felt of needing to express and engage in this work of creating this door out in the middle of a field. But I didn't have the time to do it. So what I did then is go into painting or drawing and using oil pastels on paper in order to express what the visual image was for me. And that process helped to alleviate some of the psychic buildup and the psychic tension around this image for a while. It was as if my subconscious or unconscious said, okay, you got the image, so I'll back off a little bit and let you do what you need to do. And that's subjectively what it felt like anyway. And from there, I allowed myself to sit with the image and my life circumstances until I came to a point where I was able to actually start making the image in the physical manifest form. And eventually I did. I found a door and painted it red and did a variety of other things to it, including screwing pieces of metal fence posts to it so that it would stand up, and I now have that actual, as a house door, I have that door standing upright in the middle of a field, and I'm taking photography. The piece that emerged after I physically made the door and got it upright, well, along with that process, the finishing up of the making of the door, I realized that I was being invited into another phase, which was a photography phase, and being invited into photographing the door for a full calendar year out in the middle of this field, and discovering the presence of this door in the field and what that might mean. So my discovery really is going to be throughout this next coming year as I'm photographing the door. And when I'm done with the photographs and I look at the entire year and I can look at this entire process, which is actually a multi-year process, then I'll have a deeper understanding, I'm assuming, of what's been going on. But the point I wanted to make, particularly for this section, is the different media that I use to engage in this image. It moved from working on color on paper and writing about the door, a little bit of journaling, to physically making the door. So I was working with wood and paint and metal and physically creating the image, the installation piece essentially. And from there, moving into photography, and it might have yet another phase to it, I don't know. But the key is to be open to the multiple phases and the different media that are giving me an invitation through my sub and unconscious. And by working in that way, I hope to go through this wonderful discovery process that I've been through before with other imagery and have witnessed in others. And I hope that you might be able to witness a little bit of that in this class as well as you start working with multiple media. Switching modes a little bit, I want to tell you another story about working with multiple media. In my dissertation research some time ago, I was working with people who had had near-death experiences. And while working with them, there was a particular woman that had had a near-death experience, and we were working with multiple media. I was inviting them to think about their experience and then paint or draw the experience, and from there moving into journaling. And after the first session, it was a 4-session series. After the first session, she called me up and said, "This is too intense. I'm not going to be able to engage in this work, and she withdrew from the research. And I admire her for knowing her boundaries. But what this taught me was that multimodal work, or multimedia work, can be very powerful. Like peeling an onion. Each media that you engage in can be another layer, and it can go deeper. But also, there's almost an exponential quality to mixing media. It's not just additive. It feels like there's an exponential unveiling that can happen. That can be quite powerful. Now, one of the things about flipping from something that's more visual into something that's more like journaling, you're also crossing the hemispheres of the brain. You're going from the more creative, abstract thinking in the right brain to the more analytical thinking in the left brain. You're also anchoring emotion into the linguistic centers and becoming aware of how you're defining and explaining particular experience, subjective experience, and emotional experience. And all of that process and work crossed hemisphere within the brain, but also the linking within the body, again, can be very powerful. And it's important to know one's boundaries when engaging in this type of deep work. However, it's also important to have trust in the process. That as humans, humanistic perspective is that as humans we have an inherent growth potential that is emerging throughout our lives, and that engaging in this work at this time for you might be an invitation to see what your boundaries are and push beyond your boundaries a little bit and grow. So I would invite that for you. And that brings me to today's work. As I was thinking about this multimedium work, I actually woke up with a poem that came to me this morning, and that poem is as follows. It's called Time. Time, time, time. Staccato eighth notes at allegro. Time, like snow blowing west-southwest in the wind, swirling around a tree, around a rock, then settling, only to blow away again with the next push by the wind. I've been feeling quite a bit of pressure professionally, time-wise, as things need to get done. And I woke up and had this poem kind of coming out, so I just jotted it down real quick. And as I engaged with this multimedia work, I realized it was a great opportunity to move from the poem, the poetic, into the visual. And so I contemplated the poem and what it arose out of, and used oil pastel, a postcard, and permanent marker, and created an image while thinking about that poem. And I kept going back to the poem and rereading it, and then more would be added to the image, and then reread it, and then more would be added, until I felt complete with the image. And I'll share that image here. And the title, you should always give your pieces, whether visual or movement or whatever, a title. The title for this one is Time Blows By. So, what does this mean for me? Well, there were a couple different things that came out of the image that I didn't have associations with from the poem itself. One of those was a tie back into the door, the red door that I was just talking about. That red that came through in that image, that first was a bit unsettling internally as I felt myself drawing it, and then there was a comfort, a relaxing into the image of the red door, and an opening for me into the importance of the richness of that redness. The image of the pathway through the forest was also profound. I often go to the forest for me to relax when I'm getting stressed. And so there was an invitation there. But there was also a magical quality in this particular one because of the overlay of the oil pastel and how it turned out. And so that invitation became multifaceted and multi-layered. It's not just an invitation to a physical pathway, but an invitation to an emotional and a spiritual and a psychical pathway as well. The rest of the colors are very vivid and vibrant, so for me that is quite important regarding emotion and vibrance of life and the power behind that. It wasn't a black and white photo or a black and white picture. It wasn't minimalistic in its lines. It was all-encompassing of the page, and it felt very full when I completed. I also got very tactile. I started rubbing the oil pastels with my hand and really getting into the image physically. It got it all over my hands as I smeared it around, and that combining of the colors also became important for me as I felt the combining of the red and the blue in particular, and realized the purple that came out of that combining, the white overlay for the blue and how that knitted the different colors together, not just the blue but other colors as well. So there was a knitting, a combining that happened throughout that process. And there were the movements of using my hands over the oil pastels, so there was a kinesthetic piece as well using that media. It wasn't just a crayon in the hand, it was physical, tactile. There was the slipperiness to the oil pastel that was quite wonderful. So anyway, that is my experience of doing this multimodal work, and I look forward to hearing of your experiences this week and seeing you online. Again, welcome to week 3, and we'll see you soon. Take care.